Hello, my deliciously twisted. Welcome back to Velvet Crypt, where we celebrate stories that linger in the dark long after you've turned the last page.
Welcome to the Velvet Crypt.
Today, on this horrifying Tuesday, we're opening one of horror's oldest coffins.
The Catacombs Archives.
And my obsession started at an early age. Dracula by Bram Stoker. This has to be one of the most vintage stories I have ever read. This book alone is over 20 years old, one of the oldest ones I own. The novel that gave us the vampire everyone imitates, but very few actually understand. Now, if you've only met Dracula through movies, Halloween decorations, or sparkly vampires, prepare yourself, because the original Count, he's far stranger, far quieter, and somehow far more terrifying. The story begins with a young English solicitor, Jonathan, traveling to a remote castle in Transylvania to help an eccentric nobleman purchase property in England. Seems simple enough. Except the castle feels wrong. The servants are missing. The Mears refuse to cooperate. The wolves seem oddly obedient. And the Count, he's polite, elegant, cultured. Yet every conversation leaves you feeling like you're sitting across from something wearing humanity as a very convincing costume. From there, the story slowly spreads from the isolated mountains of Transylvania into Victorian England, where an unseen evil begins changing lives one victim at a time. This is not the Dracula you think you know. One thing that surprised me was just how different this novel feels compared to its reputation. If you're expecting nonstop action, you're going to be very disappointed. If you were expecting atmospheric psychological descent into dread, you're in for an absolute feast. Dracula doesn't rely on jump scares. It relies on anticipation. The fear comes from waiting, watching, piecing together clues before the characters do. It's horror from silence rather than screams. And honestly, sometimes silence is so much louder. Now, let's talk about this giant elephant, or should I say bat, in the room. This is a Victorian novel, which means it's written entirely through journals, letters, newspaper clippings, ship logs, telegrams, and diary entries. At first, I wasn't sure I'd enjoy that format, especially in my younger days. But surprisingly, it works. Instead of feeling distant, it makes everything feel documented, like it actually happened. Like you're uncovering evidence from a real historical investigation. Every new journal entry feels like another piece of a cursed puzzle. Only the downside? The pacing. Modern readers may struggle because this book takes its sweet, undead time getting where it's going. There are long conversations, detailed observations, entire pages devoted to seemingly ordinary events. But those details slowly tighten the tension until you realize you haven't relaxed for several chapters. Now, let's talk about my first love, Dracula. Can we appreciate how unsettling Count Dracula actually is? He's not constantly roaring. He's not delivering dramatic villain speeches every chapter. Oh, no. He's patient, calculated, ancient. He's a predator who understands people better than they understand him, or maybe even themselves. That's what makes him frightening. He doesn't chase. He waits. And somehow, that feels much more realistic. There's also something fascinating about how little page time he actually gets. Yet his presence hangs over almost every scene. Like a storm cloud that's already arrived. You just haven't looked up yet. This book absolutely drips with atmosphere. Fog, moonlight, ancient castles, empty churches, storms at sea, creaking doors, wolves in the distance, Victorian London wrapped in uncertainty. It's gothic horror at its absolute finest. Reading Dracula almost feels like wandering through an old cemetery just before sunrise. Nothing is technically happening, yet every instinct tells you to leave immediately. Now, what might not work for everyone is this isn't a perfect book. Some sections definitely feel repetitive. The Victorian dialogue can be very dense. Certain characters speak with a level of formality that modern readers may find exhausting. And yes, there are moments where you'll probably think, could we please get back to the vampire? That's simply part of reading a classic. It asks for patience. Whether that's rewarding or frustrating depends entirely on the kind of reader you are.
The Asylum.
Here's what amazed me, and it might amaze you. Even after more than a century, Dracula still works. Not because of the vampire, but because of what the vampire represents. Fear of strangers, fear of disease, fear of losing control, fear that evil doesn't always arrive looking monstrous. Sometimes it knocks politely. That timeless anxiety is why Dracula refuses to stay buried. Every generation finds a new reason to fear him. Let's put on another layer with that. This is just my personal opinion in regards to rereading Dracula in my age today. Let's think about this. Bram Stoker's Dracula is set in Victorian London. This is a period of time where men were men and women were obedient and into the macabre and, well, female anatomy wasn't quite understood physically or even psychologically. So think about it. In that time frame, women were not sexual beings, right? They didn't get aroused. They don't think of sex. Men do, though. Of course they do. It's a man. They can't help it. Whenever women were hysteric, do we remember what the remedy was for women who were hysteric? I'm not going to go into it, but Google it. I often felt that Dracula was almost like a symbol. I mean, think about it. Dracula a lot of times is given this mysterious sexuality. And what we may see in movies and portrayed in movies is, especially in the 90s version, there was this sexual undertone. So what if, because women were so suppressed and weren't thought of in that period of time, that Bram Stoker wrote this book as a reflection of saying, hey, women are sexual beings too. And I'm just going to show it in a way that, well, is missed because it goes under the radar. But hey, I could be wrong. I could be reading too much into it. But I stand by my word. If you love gothic horror, slow burn suspense, creeping psychological tension, atmospheric settings, classic literature, vampires with actual menace, you know which ones I'm talking about. You'll probably have an incredible time. If you're looking for fast-paced horror packed with constant scares, this may feel painfully slow. So slow that you might just stop midway. Or you might even stop sooner than that. But if you let the novel settle around you, its atmosphere becomes almost hypnotic. My rating? For me? That is a loaded question. I mean, we're talking about my beginning of obsession. I have always dressed up as a vampire for Halloween. I always love watching vampire movies of all sorts, except for one. I haven't watched it all, but not doing it. I'm giving Dracula a 9 out of 10. Not because it's perfect, because it's not. I understand Victorian dialogue can be very daunting. But because it's one of those rare books where you can still feel its influence in nearly every vampire story written afterward. It's less about blood and more about dread. And honestly, that's what makes it immortal. Have you read Dracula? Do you love the slow gothic atmosphere? Or did the Victorian pacing nearly drain your soul before the Count had a chance? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoy horror books, gothic classics, and stories that leave bite marks on your imagination, don't forget, like, subscribe, and toll the bell. Join us here at Velvet Crypt every Horror Tuesday. Until next time, keep your windows locked, avoid mysterious castles, and if an impossibly charming stranger invites you inside after sunset, perhaps don't. Or, well, maybe do. Don't let me stop you. I'll see you in the dark next time. Good night.